morning on Wednesday, November 22nd. It's episode 321 of the 359 podcast. I'm BVG, and your hosts today are Alfred and Ben Fox Rubin.
Hi.
Yo, what up? Episode 321. Let's jam.
That worked out way better than I expected.
Ep 321. Way to
321.
go.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, we didn't expect anybody on this show.
Kind of figured everyone's traveling for holidays, but you
get
forget we have fantastic international representation, and thank you to everybody around the world watching the 359
I probably
right now.
should have prepared better.
That's okay. That's okay. We prepared as much as we usually do. Alfred, you're going to lead us off, so give us a rundown.
Yeah, there was so much news yesterday.
Right before Turkey Day.
Yeah, yesterday when we started the show, the net neutrality orders had actually just come in, so we weren't able to talk about it on the show yesterday. But we had a lot of time to prepare for it. We took a look at the order, and we'll be talking about it on today's show. Plus, right around the tail end of Tuesday, Uber had some pretty big news regarding a breach from November 2016.
Oh, I was hoping it was good news about Uber for once. Apparently not.
Nah, dude. And then Ben has a very interesting story about Black Friday shopping and virtual reality. So we'll be talking about all that. Be sure to send your questions over in the comments, and we'll get to them in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Not really, though, because we never meet that mark.
In the best of efforts, we'll see you back in the chat in roughly 3 minutes and 59 seconds. From 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Alfred Eng.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
So net neutrality has been an ongoing battle for several years on Capitol Hill, and it feels like every time the proposal is struck down, it comes back even stronger. Yesterday's orders by the FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai may be the closest we've seen net neutrality approach its death. If you're out of the loop, killing net neutrality would essentially mean the end of the open internet. With net neutrality, you can expect to pay a flat fee for access to everything online. Without it, ISPs would be able to choose what speed certain websites would get. You know, imagine having to pay extra if you wanted to watch us on YouTube or a startup website, never getting any traffic because its speed is limited. Pai issued his order on Tuesday, and the FCC will vote on it on December 14th. There's been massive protests online about this, as there is every time, but do you think that, this is kind of it for net neutrality?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like, the Republicans are running things at the FCC right now. They have 3 votes versus 2 votes for the Democrats. And essentially, under the Trump administration, there's been a big push at deregulation. So I would absolutely expect net neutrality to die off, at least under this administration.
It just feels extremely frustrating because it's almost as if literally everybody outside of the FCC and ISPs all are in agreement on this, that net neutrality should stay the way that it is. You see these massive protests online nearly every time the proposal is brought up. The FCC has their own comment section that got flooded with people just saying, don't do this. This is a terrible idea. And it just seems like, what was the point of all of this if you're just going to ignore it anyway?
That's a good point, but I'm personally of 2 minds when it comes to net neutrality. It's obviously pretty easy to say, hey, net neutrality, which also sounds really positive, is a good thing. But at the same time, I think that the ISPs do at least have some argument here as far as saying that having too much government regulation when it comes to the internet stifles innovation, stifles investments, and they have an argument there. And to at least listen to their side, I think is reasonable.
Yeah, well, in other news, Uber announced yesterday that it had suffered a breach affecting 57 million accounts in November 2016. Yes, this happened a year ago, and Uber is only telling the public about this now. The company said they had paid the hackers $100,000 to delete the stolen data and said that it had assurance that the data was destroyed. There's a lot of issues with that. Uber is based in California, which does have breach disclosure laws, which said you're supposed to inform the public within a certain amount of time, not a year. This is a company that has kept a lot hidden from the public, like its Gray Ball program, which helped block police, meant to catch their drivers, and their Hell program, which tracked Lyft drivers. The company's new CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, said it was wrong for the company to have kept this a secret for so long. I mean, do you think this is kind of the final nail in Uber's coffin, though?
No.
I mean, scandal after scandal after scandal.
Absolutely not. They got rid of the old CEO. This is the new CEO. New CEO gets kind of this honeymoon period to air out the old dirty laundry. And I think people are actually celebrating the new guy, saying, way to go, way to reveal this bad practices from the old Uber. You're now the happy, friendly new Uber.
I know a lot of people in the security community were basically saying, you should never pay hackers, because this happens a lot. I mean, the hacker behind HBO's breaches during the summer just got indicted yesterday, and he demanded $6 million for that. And they didn't pay him either. So Ben, you also wrote a story about the future of Black Friday shopping in augmented reality and in virtual reality. Does this mean, am I getting crushed by like a suburban mom that like really wants that discounted toaster in VR now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a very good possibility that could happen, and I certainly look forward to that future.
Well, that's all the time that we have. If you like what you heard here, check us out on CNET. I'm Alfred Ng.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin. Thanks for listening.
I don't thank them for listening, man. It's patronizing.
What?
How's that patronizing?
How is that patronizing? Thanks, everybody, for watching, by the way.
I thank them for watching.
Much. You thank them for watching, but not for listening.
Yes.
That's super weird.
Because it's an effort to watch it, all right?
All right. You know what? That will be one of the many things that we disagree on this show, but that's fine.
I don't celebrate Thanksgiving either.
And I hate net neutrality.
So let's start off with an easy question from the chat. First and foremost, from Chewy909, why is it called Black Friday?
I actually know this one. Do you know this one?
Go ahead. I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast, so I'm going to let you do it.
So, like, in the business world,
if
if
I'm
I'm
wrong,
wrong,
that wear ties.
So if I'm wrong, like, feel free to correct me at any time. So this is what I had heard. So, like, they record their, like, profits by colors, where if it's, like, dipping, it's red, and if it's, like, good, it's black. And the idea is that, like, on this Friday where all these sales go on and stuff, it's like all their profits go into the black, and it's like it's not
for
down.
the year.
Yes,
you're basically right. It's retail is a very difficult game, and it actually takes until Black Friday, very late into the year, for some retailers to actually start seeing a profit. Because most retail doesn't actually happen until Black Friday. It's like this entire holiday window is when most people open up their wallets and start spending like crazy.
So what color is Cyber? Like
Cyber
on
Monday,
that scale?
It's orange. It's an orange, or it's or a chartreuse, I suppose.
They've gone plaid.
Yeah, something. But yeah, expect to like just keep buying stuff or get bothered by retailers constantly to keep buying stuff, because this is when they make all their money, so they save a lot of their ad budgets.
To be fair,
I
am planning on buying like a ton of crap over the next week.
Same here. And like, if you want to buy a TV, now is almost certainly the best time to do it, like starting either this week or Black Friday or Cyber Monday, when there are a lot of very good deals for that in electronics.
I feel like we didn't have enough time to talk about your VR story, though, and I feel like you wanted to talk about it more.
I mean, I just like talking about e-commerce.
Okay.
Like, to me, the interesting thing about this is that, like, right now, it's like not very interactive to shop online. It's not that much fun. It's just basically like a grid of stuff with a white background, and the idea of potentially, I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but potentially putting on a VR headset and, like shopping in the VR world. Like, one of the concepts that was mentioned by Mark Laurie from Walmart was, let's say you're looking for a tent, you go and you put on a VR headset, you're transported to a campground, you can go inside the tent, you can walk around the tent, you can even ask your voice assistant questions, like as if they're a sales rep. It's kind of like a cool concept, and it goes way beyond what e-commerce is today.
Yeah. I usually, when I'm shopping online, I really just have to rely on the old imagination.
Yeah.
And that has failed me plenty of times. I almost and you know what I think it would be really helpful for, like finding out sizes of things.
Yes.
I almost bought a Connect 4 set the other day
and it was like the travel size.
Yeah. I almost bought it, and I read through the comments like, this is the pocket sized one. Don't buy it.
Right. So VR is probably going to come. From like talking to a lot of folks that are in retail and also analysts, VR is expected to come later for a lot of things. AR, you should see baked into a lot of phones much more, not just for games and stuff like Google Lens, but also for retail, where potentially you'd be able to shop like at a mini AR store, like if you're just kind of like hanging out in the office or whatever.
All right, let's divert back into our original topic about net neutrality. Hot pizza. Do you think the internet will change completely? And how can we all get involved and help out? Because lo and behold, a lot of our listeners are not in favor of the repeal of net neutrality.
Sure. Look, I personally don't like some of the things that are being thrown out there right now, and this is not a fashionable position to be taking, are gloom and doom scenarios that may not show up. The problem is that a lot of ISPs are essentially monopolies in their specific regions. Where I live, I have two different options. I have Verizon Fios, which I'm a customer for, and also the cable company. In that scenario, the likelihood that one of those providers all of a sudden starts doing an a la carte internet service where you start having to pay more for Amazon Video or Netflix would be significantly reduced due to competition. The problem is that there isn't that competitive landscape in a lot of areas.
Like
and
mine.
And I think that's what people are especially worried about.
Yeah, so this is specifically for the U.S. There's plenty of countries out there that don't have net neutrality, and there was a tweet in October that got viral, basically showing what it looks like in Portugal that doesn't have net neutrality.
Yeah, I remember this.
I'm sending it to you right now so you can pull it up on the stream. But it's basically like it's different package that you can buy for access to the internet. So
for certain internet,
it's ridiculous.
Like
So
websites.
it's basically like, oh, if you want the entertainment package where you want to pay like this much so you can get like top speeds for like Netflix and
it's almost
YouTube
like
and
different cable bundles.
It's
basically
ridiculous.
And nobody in the United States wants to see that.
Yeah.
I'm just a little hesitant or skeptical to immediately say that this is definitely what's going to happen because they're going to strip away net neutrality. It is possible, and I think a lot of people
I think
are.
that scenario is much more likely to happen than, the doom and gloom scenario that you're talking about, where everyone says the internet's going to be really slow now unless you pay like $1 million for these kinds of things. I don't think they're going to be slowing down the internet so much per se, as much as it is going to be. You're gonna have to pay like way more if you want like only access to like these websites.
Because tentatively, yeah, this is up on the screen right now. This is, where'd you say, from Portugal?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at it just in passing, the dollar signs don't really add up too badly on the surface. But that's not to say that things will change quickly. And it's something to just be on awareness for, because this is now, the ball is completely in their court. You're not going to have any argument. And there's going to be no control from the customer anymore. This is completely giving like God control to the corporations.
to specifically
ISPs
and broadband companies.
And if anything, it makes it extremely more complicated than anything else.
And as far
as this is the scenario for which we're going to end up in, I think we're a long way away from something like this. And I think that if a major provider were to at some point start to offer something like what's offered in Portugal, people would lose their minds. I think that it's just not something that Americans would want to see.
And I think as far as like what we can do about this, I think that's, the big question everyone's been wondering about. Like I said, you look at websites, if you go on Reddit, where nearly every post is about net neutrality. On Twitter, it has its own hashtag with the emoticons. YouTube launches campaigns like every year or so, basically saying we don't agree with this. This should be stopped. And it just seems like, unless this reaches the ears of somebody who's like in power,
it's reaching the ears of people.
Because the thing is like the people that vote on this are FCC commissioners who are not publicly elected like officials. Mm-hmm. Like we don't vote them into office, so like they're like there's not that many consequences to like what they do, and what can you do at that point?
Yeah, Mr. Ajit Punch in the Face was appointed by Obama into the commission. However, it was Trump that made him the chairman.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, this guy, he's going to have a rough life going forward.
Well, he has a different philosophy for how the internet should be regulated.
Especially interested.
Yeah, I wonder why. I mean, maybe it's because he used to be Verizon's top lawyer. I don't know.
Okay, Tom Wheeler, who was the previous chairman, was also came from that world as well, and he's the one that actually helped push forward net neutrality. So, I wouldn't immediately
You're right. There's no mutual exclusivity. However, there is a question of character and the interpretation of the values that you bring with you, and this is sheer exploitation in my personal, very personal, non-CNET affiliated perspective. I hate Ajit Pai.
Tell us how you really feel.
Just did.
And I think, okay, and going back to like, what should people do? I mean, anybody that, lives in the States can and should get involved in the democratic process. People have been vocalizing this, not just on Reddit, but through, the FCC channels. And,
Yeah, there are public comments
anytime
section.
there are public comment sections, whether
Which-
you agree with net neutrality or not, like that's just, I'm not here espousing like if you're for net neutrality, go there and argue that point. Like people that actually think that this is too much regulation should also have their voices heard. That's what the public comments are for, and
Yeah, and on that note, in the notes of today's show, when it goes up on demand, we'll put the link in the description so that you can go to the FCC page, file in your opinion, your points. We'll include all the right information. I forget which order it is, numerically, but we'll put it all in the description so you can get involved and have your voice heard.
yeah,
Instead of just
that
ours.
sounds- yeah, absolutely. Do we have other comments about net neutrality?
Yeah, so let's kind of.
I'm sure that's what all their comments are.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge effect on literally everybody. Stellar Tech, what exactly would be the benefits of letting go of net neutrality? Do we see any benefits?
Well, the main argument that GPI has been making is basically, look how innovative like we were before all these regulations, and basically these regulations are stopping innovation on the internet. I don't know what any of these innovations that he's talking about
yeah, has he
are.
cited any specific?
No.
It's essentially it is a broad concept about innovation, but also investment. One thing that Maggie Reardon, who's our reporter that's been covering net neutrality for years, mentioned in her story from yesterday. She said that a lot of ISPs and internet providers are now more reluctant to go into rural areas out of concern that their enormous investment to go to those harder to get to areas, they're essentially going to spend millions or billions of dollars, and then their pipes are going to be treated as if they're a utility.
Yeah,
that is a disincentive for them to go and
it
start
really
providing.
keeps me up at night when I'm thinking, those poor billion-dollar companies, man. It's just I really wish
Sure, but,
somebody
like,
could
that's
help
how-
them.
Look, that's how markets are structured. They're not charities. This isn't the government providing this stuff. If the government wants to build pipes going to rural areas, that's a different situation.
Sometimes I just think, how come the government's not looking out for these billionaires out there
I
who
get
wanna
it, but,
make
like,
more money?
It's
Come on. All they want to do is be richer than rich.
okay. I think also, yeah, it's
So that is a benefit of this, actually. ISPs make even more money. So I think that's a pretty nice benefit if you're a billionaire.
Oh man, that must be great. All right, moving on. Pele, which companies are supporting this net neutrality repeal and which aren't?
A lot of companies
like a
have
hit list to me.
I don't know any companies that have publicly spoken out other than Verizon, I would say, saying, this is probably a good idea.
no Verizon, AT&T. I think a lot of the major
But
providers.
most of the Silicon Valley giants have spoken out against this. Google has been very vehemently against repealing net neutrality. Reddit, Twitter has publicly made statements against this. I don't think I've heard anything from Apple on this.
Yeah, Apple isn't really an internet service. So
Yeah, Facebook's also spoken out against.
I would
the
probably
repeal.
imagine that Netflix too, but I
Netflix
would,
is super against it.
right. and the reason it's important to mention that Google and Netflix are very much opposed to this, as I'd imagine Amazon would be, is because they probably know that this is going to cost them more money too. There's obviously a huge concern that this could cost customers more money, but we're kind of piling on the ISPs here and saying they're just going to make more money. The thing is that when Netflix goes and starts providing 4K video, but doesn't have to pay anything extra to start sending those through the pipes, then that's a concern for the ISPs. And you're basically asking the ISPs to shoulder that burden completely through net neutrality. Again, I'm just trying to provide both sides of this. And Netflix is obviously making more money in the current regime than they would without net neutrality.
Yeah, but I like to keep my stuff cheap, so
Okay.
put it on the ISPs. They're billion-dollar companies.
Sure, but so is Netflix and Google.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a battle between multiple billion-dollar multinational companies, and it sucks that consumers could potentially end up getting stuck in the middle of this.
Yeah.
I mean, like in some ways, it reminds me
And then-
of those blackouts that used to happen on, with cable channels.
And then the other
broadcast.
concern is basically, with if net neutrality is repealed, imagine there's a company that wants to be like the Netflix, the next Netflix, sorry, and they want to stream like 4K video and they can do it much cheaper and all this stuff, but they don't have the funds to pay for like their stuff to get through at the speed
Totally.
that it deserves to be.
I think that's easily one of the strongest arguments for
Yeah.
preserving net neutrality.
If I can let my inner conspiracy theorist out, I think this is all about the restriction of information and the general trying to dumb down society.
I mean, like, that's interesting. However, the major internet provider, like the major internet companies like Google and Netflix, are fighting
Actually,
to maintain net
there was a
neutrality.
point-
No, I get that. But the entire effort, not the entire effort, because mostly it's probably fueled by money, but a large portion of the effort behind any kind of corralling to the access to information is to try to dumb down your audience.
Well, there was actually a point brought up that I'd been seeing flowing around Twitter yesterday, basically saying if this repeal goes through, that it would actually stifle like fake news spreads, just because these are the same startup like websites that we're talking about, startups, where
That's an
they would
interesting
they're, like
argument.
like this guy that like only makes fake news to make like a quick buck, and then it's basically, well, it's not worth it, or I'm gonna have to pay extra for it to like get like the bandwidth that it deserves.
There's
for
an
people to get
interesting
it.
perspective.
Yeah.
Get it noticed. I mean, look at that. I got you to actually say something.
You didn't. I
for
saw
the
that on Twitter, dude. You
anti-net,
didn't,
like, net neutrality.
that was not you at all.
I did. I got into your brain.
All right, let's fly
Okay.
through a couple more questions real quick because we're getting almost out of time here. Frank Palmisano, even without net neutrality, would package pricing setups even really work? Especially in the wireless space when there's so much competition, wouldn't people just switch providers?
Yeah, I saw that packaging like argument, and I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, because they're basically taking the inspiration from like TV, like what cable companies do, right? Where it's like,
Right, and that's worked out so well for them.
I only want to watch sports, or I only want to watch news, that kind of thing. That's not like what
That's
people
not
do
how
on the
the
internet,
internet
dude.
works.
Like nobody's like, oh yeah, I only go online for email. Like that's
Or tech news.
That's like absurd. Like nobody does that. It's so dumb.
It's the problem with that argument, I would say, is that too many internet service providers are monopolies in their region.
It's like if
so
I-
there aren't the competitive pressures that would normally exist.
It's like if I opened like a buffet and I'm like, okay, do you want like the vegetable deal? Do you want like
or just rice.
the dessert deal?
Do you want
Just-
lettuce?
Yeah, like that makes no sense for the internet.
It works, I guess, in Portugal. I haven't been to Portugal. I don't know.
I don't
if
think
they're-
I don't think people like that.
I don't know if
I
they're.
don't-
We should fly to Portugal and interview people there and find out.
that might not
if
be
they
a terrible,
hate the internet.
terrible road trip next time around
Yeah.
for CNET.
Definitely.
From Apu Sakar and reinforced by Pele, how will this affect users outside the U.S.? And specifically, Pele wants to know how it's going to impact in Europe.
That's a good question. I don't know. Do you know the answer?
I think
to
it would
that?
affect, if the website that you're going in is based in the U.S., which last time I checked, a hell of a lot of them are, including CNET.com, probably one of the better tech news websites out there.
I like it. It's a fair.
Yeah,
website.
but anyway, the point is that like if the website that you're trying to access is based in the U.S., even though you're not like affected by net neutrality in where you are, if it's based in the U.S. and that website doesn't want to pay more to like increase the bandwidth on something like that, it might be a raw deal for you.
Sure. I think another point to add to that is that the United States, because of its stature in the world, is an influential regulator. And so if the U.S. decides to take a specific regulatory regime, it could have influence beyond its borders as well. And that's how, again, hypothetically, that could end up influencing Europe or other regulators out there.
Ugh, what an ugly time we're in here. Let's switch gears real quick.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Before we call it a day and talk about hacking real quick. Matthew Datcher, the Datch in the chat. Is there a point to hacking people's information anymore? It seems like all of our information's already out there.
That's a great point.
I would say so, because most of the times when these hacks happen, like these massive breaches, at least the people that are stealing the information primarily aren't the ones that are using them. Most of the times they get sold online. And you're right that, a lot of it is like already out there. But I think the premise is like you can always sell it as new information because people, when they're buying these like, millions of records in batches, they're not looking to see like, oh, these have already been used. Yeah, let's take that. I don't want to buy that one. Like you buy it in bulk. And then you basically use that. There's several programs out there.
It's like when you bought Pokemon cards and you got like 14 Ratatas, and you're like, oh, I don't need all these, but whatever, I'll keep buying.
You never know when you might need it.
So basically, like there's like programs that you can use that basically it's called credential stuffing, where you take like all these records and then you stuff them into like every website imaginable, and eventually you get one in return. And the thing about these, like Uber's breach in particular, is that even though there were no passwords or anything like involved in it, so from what I understand, it was a name, email, and your phone number, which through some legwork can actually end up getting you like a lot of information on somebody, including their password. Like all you really need to do a password reset on Facebook is like an email address and a phone number. And if you have that, then
I think
it's a lot of things.
Going back to what Datch mentioned too, is that I think it's so easy to get desensitized to all of these hacks, especially this year. There have been so many of them. And Alfred, I'm sure you would agree that like it's important to stay some level of vigilant and not walk around with your social security number on your T-shirt or something like that.
Or do, because it's probably already out there.
That sounds like a really millennial thing to do and protest.
We've seen how that can go horribly, horribly wrong for the LifeLock guy. So somebody did try that.
Dude is an idiot.
And it really didn't work.
All right. I wish we could keep talking about this all day because this is an utterly fascinating and, if not terrifying, topic. But we are out of time. We will be talking about this in detail for weeks and weeks and months to come, undoubtedly, as long as the internet's still there. We'll see what the next couple weeks brings.
We're going to try to get Maggie in the office. She comes to visit pretty regularly, and she knows way more about net neutrality than I would say most people in the United States. And we would love to get her in front of you guys and ask whatever questions you want about net neutrality.
Yeah, please. We should definitely have her in for an extended period of time and just grill her.
Yeah, she's, she knows the stuff in and out. She's been writing about it for years. So, and definitely check out her story from yesterday because it'll probably answer some of your questions about what the impacts are.
As always, it'll be in the description of the show. Until they shut us off behind a paywall, that's going to be it for us for the week because we are going to be on Thanksgiving holiday until Monday. And just as an FYI warning to everybody, Monday will be a later show due to some other scheduling conflicts. And I do want to leave us on a bit of a good news note today since it's been piled with bad. We have added another opportunity to listen to the 359 podcast. You can now subscribe to CNET podcasts on your Amazon Echo.
Woohoo!
You can add CNET to your flash news briefing. In the mornings, it will be occupied by our Tech Today news segment. In the afternoons, the 359 podcast. So if anybody out there wants to add us to your Echo, we'd love to join you in your evening commute. And I, of course, reference this on behalf of Eastern Standard Time because we are in New York. So hopefully we get some subscribers there. Anyways, thanks to everyone else who's here with us. And Alfred, you should bring us home.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening.
You got to change the blurb now.
I do the thank at the end of the show. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard here today, check us out on CNET.com. The 359 podcast is also available on TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, FeedBurner, and again, CNET.com.
And iTunes.
And CNET.com.
And
the Echo.
The Echo.
The Echo now. I guess we have to add that. Also, it's on CNET.com.
Anyway, thanks everybody, and have a good Turkey Day, and we'll see you on Monday.
And have a great rest of the week for everybody who doesn't celebrate Turkey Day.
Yeah.
Just enjoy your life.
Just enjoy life.
Until there's no more internet. Bye-bye.